for watching. This video is being made because I watched something, a Kent Hovind debate, and I have some thoughts. This debate was between Kent Hovind and Dr. Herman Mays. It was on the YouTube channel Non Sequitur. The Non Sequitur? I'll put a link in the description, a URL or a link. I think the channel did a good job of moderating the debate. Gave each side the time. There was at least one time, and maybe it was a couple times, they needed to step in because Kent Hovind and Herman Mays got into a cycle of repeating each other. So because they did a good job of moderating the debate, and because this video I'm making is a brief overview or a summary of an hour and 50-minute long debate, I encourage you to watch the whole debate for yourself. Herman Mays spoke first in the debate. He opened it off. One thing that Kent Hovind says frequently is phylogenetic trees are not proof of anything beyond the ability of people to draw lines on paper. And Herman Mays, maybe he was trying to disprove that accusation. He didn't. He didn't disprove it. In fact, one quote I got from him was, "Not directly testing common ancestry." He came right out there and admitted it's not the phylogenetic trees that are not testing common ancestry. They see similarities in animals, and they make inferences and assumptions. But the best proof that Herman Mays presented against himself, he lost this debate. Wow. It was a very lopsided debate in that sense. But if these phylogenetic trees were scientific, then there would only be one of them. There wouldn't be a variety of different ways things could be arranged. You know, chemicals, atoms, the periodic table of elements. There's only one of them, because that is science. That is what really happens. It's based on testing and people paying attention to the testing. But Herman Mays said that the gene tree phylogenetic, the trees based on genetics, and those based on species trees, he called it, or how they look, are different. Yes, they are. Now, Kent Hovind, it was his turn for his opening statement, and he pointed out that classifications are put on these animals by people, and they in no way prove common ancestry. It's just the way people classify things. Kent Hovind made an excellent point about how common parts could just mean a designer. For example, novels. Kent Hovind named a specific novelist, Louis L'Amour. He writes Western novels. And Kent came up with a list of things you'll find in every Louis L'Amour novel. Does that mean they evolved from something, or there was an explosion at a paper factory and the random motions caused the paper to come together? No, that's the way the creator created it. And that is a plausible explanation for why animals have similarities. If somebody is being honest and they make the claim that animal similarities proves a common ancestor, they just proved that there is no such thing as a car factory or car designers, and that cars evolved from skateboards. Kent Hovind made that point very well. Then Kent was sent questions in preparation for this debate, and he read all the questions. He put them up on the slide, or the PowerPoint, put the PowerPoint up on the, on the on the internet while he was making the presentation. Here are the questions Kent was asked in advance of the debate. How are consistent, nested, hierarchical patterns of neutral variation across different genes explained by independent creation of species? How are these consistent, nested, hierarchical patterns explained? How are consistent, nested, hierarchical patterns of neutral variation across different genes explained by independent creation of species? Does a common design or hypothesis predict that species living in the same environment and occupying the same ecological niche should be the same? What specific predictions does special creationism make for the comparative molecular genetic data? How are creationists going about testing those predictions? Is there any conceivable data that would be inconsistent with the idea of special creation? Why would scientists across different faiths, or none at all, come to an overwhelming consensus on the idea of common ancestry if there were no compelling evidence for common ancestry? Should scientists measure their findings against the Bible before accepting those results? Is the Bible the final authority in science? Okay, there's one other question, but some thoughts about those questions. One, watch what Kent Hovind said about them. He knocked it out of the park metaphorically. Wow. He did a great job of explaining the answers to these questions. Some of these questions are stupid or don't make any sense. Oh yeah, speaking of things that don't make sense. Part of Herman May's opening presentation was showing these charts that were supposedly what you would expect if things were created and what you would expect if things evolved. But he made no intelligible case about why you'd expect the things, how he came to the conclusion about what things would be like if they were created. A creator can make things that look similar. If you don't believe that, go down to a car showroom. You know, the Ford compact car might look a lot like the Ford mid-size sedan. Or, you know, the Toyota mid-size sedan might have similarities with the Toyota luxury or full-size sedan. A creator can create things similar. So, wow, some of these questions are like assuming if they're similar parts, they had to have evolved that way. That's stupid. No. Things can be created to look old. Things can be created looking similar. Now, some people like to talk about predictions. There need to be predictions. Well, the creation model does make predictions that come true, but what's more important than predictions is being based on what you actually see. Until there has been an animal that gives birth to a different kind of animal, you don't get to call it scientific. I don't care what predictions you make, and evolutionary predictions haven't happened anyway, or they are unrealistically long term. Well, it took 1 million years to get this and this to happen, so it's going to take 1 million more years. That's a worthless prediction. It's not falsifiable. It's not testable. Assuming that all scientists that spout evolutionism are doing it because they're really convinced by it is not based on reality. In reality, there are people that will try to get you fired if you're a science teacher, if you're a student trying to get a science degree, if you're trying to become a doctor. Not even a scientist that teaches things, a doctor. There are there's no other way to put it. There are evil people who love their religion of evolutionism so much that they're a professor at a college and they won't sign a letter of recommendation to medical school if you don't believe certain things about the past. Not whether you know your science and know what diseases and animals and chemicals are right now, but what do you believe about the past? Well, with all that pressure, you don't get to say, this percentage believe it. This percentage of believe it is never a legitimate argument when there's punishment for not believing. That argument, this percentage of so-and-so believe it, proves that Adolf Hitler was the best leader in world history, or the dictators in North Korea are the best leaders in world history. You do a survey and look at their approval ratings. Yeah, they probably were high approval ratings. The approval ratings for the guy in North Korea is really high. Well, but if you don't say he's the best ever, if you don't say communism is the best ever when you live in Russia in 1960, you're going to have a hard time. Yeah, some of these questions were falsely accusing Kent Hovind of wanting the Bible taught in science classrooms. And Kent Hovind doesn't want that. He wants science taught in science classrooms. Well, Kent Hovind is in favor of getting rid of public schools, or he questions whether we should have public schools. But if we're going to have public schools, it should be science taught in science classrooms. Kent Hovind does not want the Bible and God taught in science classrooms. And Kent Hovind does not want scientists to, read the Bible only. Kent Hovind wants scientists to do real science. And real science is see what happens, observe. Nobody has ever observed a single-cell organism become anything other than the next generation of single-cell organism. The biggest change that we've been able to document was in 20 or 40,000 generations of E. coli. They could eat a new thing they couldn't eat before. Wow, that many generations and all we got is it's eating something new. You don't have any proof. So it's not scientific to think that that next generation of E. coli is going to grow legs or become a multicellular organism. Last question that he was asked. How do you explain Christians such as Pope Francis Bergoglio, who see no impediments to being a Christian imposed by accepting evolution as an explanation for biology? Alright, here's why I saved this question for last after I talked about those other questions. Kent Hovind, there's some underlining here which I think Kent Hovind put into the question that he was sent. And here's what I mean. Specifically, he underlined somebody, and I'm guessing it was Kent Hovind, underlined the first Christians in that sentence. How do you explain Christians underlined, beginning parentheses, question mark, close parentheses? And I think Kent Hovind did that because he doesn't want to call the Catholic Pope a Christian. The current Catholic Pope is an embarrassment to Catholics and humans across the world, but I'm willing to call him a Christian. But I think that's why Kent underlined that. He doesn't want to acknowledge him as a Christian. Or he questions whether we should call him a Christian. And Bergoglio is my addition. That wasn't in the question. Because that's what I'm going to call him. In my mind, he is Pope Bergoglio. And why? Because that's his name. So that's what I'm going to call him. Is if ever I know what a pope's real name was and is, I'm going to call him that. Okay, and now the other place where there was something underlined was towards the end of the sentence. Being a Christian imposed by accepting, here it is, evolution, underline, beginning parentheses, question mark, end parentheses. I think Kent put that down because one thing that Kent pointed out in this debate, or one of the other videos I saw of him today, sometimes two people can use the same word, but they don't mean the same thing. They're talking past each other. And evolutionists, those are the religion of evolutionism, and creationists, sometimes they do that. And here's how. When somebody who believes the religion of evolutionism says evolution happens, it's been proven, and you have to accept it or you're anti-scientific, they mean, well, there's more than one thing you can mean by evolution. Kent Hovind has broken it down into 6 things. The last on his list is microevolution. So some people point to microevolution, which is a scientific fact that virtually nobody is denying. Kent Hovind, Institution for Creation Research, Answers in Genesis, none of the big creation evangelists, nobody with a big following is denying microevolution. It is a scientific fact that is not contradictory at all, not even the slightest bit contradictory with the Bible. Now, some people point to that and say, see, but when they say evolution, they mean a whole lot of other stuff too. They mean single-cell organisms turning into everything. They mean stars coming together without a creator making it happen. They mean the Big Bang and everything was in a little tiny dot and became every chemical that we have. And that is, let's see, that's how some people are talking past each other. Now when a creationist says evolution's not true, they are meaning everything else but microevolution. They're not denying microevolution, they're saying it's so different from the other things that it doesn't belong, under the same word. Alright. So, Herman Mayes argued against himself and his position when he said similarities are not used to make phylogenetic trees. Well, what are you making them out of? He said, when like begets like, that proves evolution. I don't know if he is stupid or dishonest, but he's one of the two to say that thing. Here's what that means. Kent Hovind likes to point out the scientific fact that dogs still produce dogs, people produce people. You want a prediction or a test of whether things will create after their kind and make something that's the same thing they are? Go to the hospital, you'll see women giving birth to more humans. There's no change there. Now, what's his name? Herman Mayes said that proves evolution. Wow. No, it doesn't. Actually, that disproves evolution. Wow, that's stupid or dishonest. But no, things not changing does not prove things changing. Changing, not changing. Those are different. He made me, I thought of an analogy or a hypothetical scenario where somebody uses similar logic. Imagine you go to a used car lot and you say to the used car salesman, I might want that car there, but I want to make sure it will actually run. Let me take it for a test drive. And then the salesman says, it will drive, it will move, and here's the proof that it will move. It's not moving now. Would you buy that car? Is that good logic? No! It's not happening now is not proof that it's happened in the past, whatever it is. A car driving, macroevolution, Herman Mayes was talking about some different plants that are still plants. It's still a plant. He tried to pin Kent Hovind down on how much grass there was at the beginning. And Kent wouldn't let him. It was kind of rude. Kent started to yell. I can understand his frustration. Kent doesn't have to know exactly how many kinds of grass there were at the beginning. Kent does not have a burden of proof. He's not asking for his belief to be taught in a science classroom under the banner of science in public schools. But, wow, plants still being plants is not a single-cell organism becoming plants and animals. So all the grass having one ancestor does not prove all life having one ancestor. And yeah, so Mays. Herman Mays said trillions of years are absurd when Kent Hovind said something like, I'll give you trillions of years, it won't happen. Over trillions of years, it won't happen, or something like that. Trillions of years is absurd. No, saying trillions of years is absurd. Is absurd. Despite all the stressful moments where he was lying, he gave us one piece of comedy there. Trillions of years is not absurd. It's not more absurd than billions of years. It's not more absurd than things that we don't see happening now, supposedly scientifically being proven having happened in the past. Let's see. I wrote common ancestor, observed. So Herman apparently, yeah, he claimed we have observed a common ancestor, or we've got observed proof of it. No, we don't. You like to talk about neutral genetic variations. Those don't prove anything. Huh? A designer, a maker can make things that have common parts. So you aren't proving anything about no maker making things. If you go with that. He claimed that Louis L'Amour, the Louis L'Amour analogy, proving that things can be designed or that commonalities does not prove there's no designer or creator, was irrelevant. Well, no, actually, pointing out that one book author will write more than one book and have similarities, or can, that's not irrelevant. That is uber relevant. He said, because animals aren't books. Oh boy. They aren't exactly the same thing, but the fact that a creator can create things with similarities applies to books and animals equally. The principle goes both places. And what makes the animals? Information in their cells. What is a book? It's information put down on paper. Or more modern books, information put down in a computer file that is read on a device that can interact with that computer file. So, yeah, it's relevant. Herman Mays liked to talk about how he knows people of multiple religions that are convinced of evolutionism. Well, that's not proof. The proof would be what they saw that convinced them of it, and Herman gave no proof. And yeah, one thing Kent likes to point out is that if you find a fossil in the ground, all you really know about it is it died. You don't know if it had any kids. And you definitely don't know that if it had kids that were different than itself. We don't see that happening now, so we got no reason to believe it happened in the past. But that's what is needed for all life on this earth, to be the result of evolution, macroevolution, from one common cell which spontaneously came to life. Despite scientists not being able to make it happen in a lab yet. And Herman Mays' refuting, it was, wow, weak. No, that's too generous of a thing to say to his attempted refuting. But his refutation was, we can do genetic studies. You can go to Ancestry.com DNA or 23andMe and get DNA and know that your ancestors came from here and there. And if your cousin didn't have any kids and dies, we could dig up that cousin's bones and see the DNA that says you're related. Yeah, the DNA shows who's a cousin, but that has absolutely nothing to do with a half ape, half human giving birth to the first human, and chimpanzee all at the same time, or within a couple generations, or bears, foxes, and cats having a common ancestor that made all of them. Wow. So, thank you for watching. While I encourage you to watch Kent Hovind because he gives good scientific information and I appreciate his zeal for the Bible and the Lord, take him with mountains of salt. When you read the Bible, you will see that Kent Hovind's not completely lined up with what the Bible says about everything. His theology is not completely accurate. And the most important reason I would encourage you to not buy into Kent Hovind's theology is he does not believe all that God has revealed. So thank you for watching. You have a good day.